can you just tell us your name and the years that you attended SU?
Okay, I'm Jen Bocci Deinlein, and I graduated in 1999, so I was here from 95 through 99.
And what have you brought today?
Well, I brought a lot of cheerleading stuff because in addition to being a cheerleader, I was the coach from 2004 through 2012.
Wow.
So right here I have a set of pom-poms. The style has not varied too much. When I was a freshman, we had one plain orange and one plain maroon pom-pom, about the same size shape.
Mm-hmm.
Then we switched to basically like this, all maroon with metallic
like orange
inside.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I became coach, I wanted to go back to the one of each because I think that makes a nice visual effect. So we went with, and I like a little bit of metallic, but the metallic streamers don't hold up as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I did the mix. So we went to this style, and I think they might still have this style. I'm not sure. I haven't seen them yet. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And can you tell me about your shirt? You said that there was a story that went with it.
This will it help if I hold it up?
Yeah, that would be great.
There you go.
Thank you.
It's called the New Crusade, Susquehanna Athletics 2007-2008. When I blocked myself.
That's okay.
I also spent a year as the interim sports information director. I was in between jobs. The previous SID left, and I went to Pam Samuelson, the AD, and I said, well, I can help out for the summer because I don't have anything else going on at the time. Because I had interned in sports information when I was a student. So I'm like, I know how the summer goes. You know, I can say if there's new hires, I can send out releases. I can, do all those little things that go on in the summer. So they hired a new SID right at the end of summer, and then he came and he worked the first couple of games, and he's like, it wasn't a good fit. So by that point, seasons had started, and everyone was like, well, we're not going to be able to find somebody, so I ended up staying in the position for a whole year.
Wow.
Flying by the seat of my pants, but fortunately, we also brought in a couple of interns, and so between the three of us, we held down the fort. But what happened was, the previous SID, when he tried to get advertising for the football program, he basically sent out a letter to a bunch of businesses in the area and said, here's our rates, just send it back. So I had a company, Farm and Home Oil, and they're on the back of the shirt. They sent payment for an ad in a space that had already been claimed. It was like the back of a football program. So here I had this like big check, and I'm like, well, this isn't going to work. I already have that spot claimed. So this was the year that we joined the Liberty League in football, our previous conference, and the first year of the Landmark Conference for all of our other sports. So I went back to them, I said, that space has already been claimed, but we'd like to generate some excitement for our new conferences. Would you mind if we use that money to put towards t-shirts? I'll put your name, your information on the back. You can use this as a sponsorship for t-shirts. And what we did was we handed these out to students at all the first football game, the first soccer games, like all of the first fall games that season. And they actually were pretty popular. Like I saw people wearing them for a couple years after that. So they went over pretty well. And so it was the New Crusade because we were in new conferences and stuff. So
that's awesome.
I thought that was kind of a fun item, and I happened to find mine, so I brought it along.
That's fantastic. So that is from, you had already graduated, I think it said 2007 and 8 on the back?
Yes, it was the fall of 2007 that we gave these out.
Okay, so 9 years now?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. I know, it's hard to believe.
Yeah. So why did you decide to bring the items that you've brought? And I know that you've brought a lot more.
Yes. Well, I am admittedly one of those stubborn diehards who will love and cling to the Crusader name all the rest of my life. Because I did work in sports information, I know the original story. And I also worked a little bit with Dr. Housley when he was writing his book. And I think Luther Grossman was, I think he should be celebrated more on campus because I think he was very forward-thinking, very creative. Like, he flooded the tennis courts in the winter and turned them into skating rinks.
You mentioned a story. Would you mind sharing that?
Sure. What? Wait, which one?
Like the original story that you mentioned.
Oh, of the Crusader?
Yes.
Okay.
That would be a great
Yes.
story to hear from your perspective.
Okay. So back in the 20s, the NCAA was not the big juggernaut that it is now. In fact, I'm not even sure it existed. So there wasn't a lot of oversight into college athletics. And so schools were basically using people on their football teams who were not students, like, ringers. And Susquehanna did dabble in that a little bit, apparently. And Luther Grossman was very much against that. And so his mission as athletic director was to have teams that were representative of Susquehanna. So it was only Susquehanna students. And he also felt that physical activity was very important. Obviously something that we still agree with today. And his motto was sports for all and sports for their own sake. So he created a lot of intramural programs. And he wanted to see all students at Susquehanna, or a lot of students, getting involved in some sort of physical activity. So there were intramurals, he developed more of the athletic teams, he did more with the fields. And this somehow caught the attention of a sports editor in Philadelphia. And so he wrote a big article about it, and he referred to Grossman's teams as Grossman's Little Crusaders. And so that stuck, and that's how we became known as the Crusaders. And yeah, through the years, at times it was depicted as a knight on horseback because, well, how else are you going to depict it? But I always thought that was really great, and because we're a Division III school, I thought that continued to be relevant even today. Division III, we're all about the student athlete. We don't have scholarships. We do participate in sports for their own sake, because we love the sport.
Right.
So that's the old story of the Crusader, and one that I love dearly. So
That's a really great story. I'd never heard that story before, so.
really, see, that makes me sad,
But now it's going to be
Yes.
in the archive, and so all of the future generations will get to hear it.
yay.
So, how did you hear about the History Harvest?
I saw it on Facebook and in some of the mailings from the alumni office. So I was intrigued.
You're just like, oh, I have to do this.
Yes, and well, old cheerleaders never die. So, and I don't think, from my time as coach, sometimes I go back to try and find some information about cheerleading like well before me, and there's not a lot of our history that's recorded. Or kind of like the forgotten sport.
Right.
Because we are a varsity sport.
Mhm.
It doesn't always get promoted that way, but we get varsity letters and everything. So I know that it's more recent history, but I thought if I could bring some of my stuff, since I do have a longer history, having been an athlete and a coach, I thought we could at least preserve some of that.
No, that's wonderful.
So
So, tell me about your time at SU. What was your major?
I was a mass communications major.
Okay.
So I was also sports editor of the Crusader.
Okay.
I have a lot of useless sports knowledge.
That's okay. Hey, if you ever go on Jeopardy, that could come in handy.
There we go. So yeah, I'm a big sports nut. I tried out for cheerleading in high school because I thought I would have the best seat in the house for football games. That was a mistake because you actually don't have a very good seat because you're right behind the football players and, well, they're taller than you. But yeah, so I cheered here for 4 years and I loved it. After I graduated, I actually started coaching. I was an assistant coach at the junior high in my hometown. And then I moved to Northern Virginia and I was coaching at a college there, Marymount University.
Mm-hmm.
My sister came to SU and she was going into her senior year and she was on the cheerleading squad. And middle of the summer, she got a phone call from the coach, who actually had been my coach as well. She was here for 8 years. And she said, I've just resigned, so they're going to be looking for a new coach. Just wanted to let you all know. And so she called me up right away. She's like, they need a new coach at SU. And I was kind of at a point in my life where I was ready to get out of the city. So I applied for the job and I got the job and came up here and I stayed for 8 years.
So you got to coach your sister.
Yes, I did. I coached her for a year.
How was that?
It was a little scary at first because being a brand new coach, I was like, I don't want people to think that I'm biased in her favor. It helped that she was a senior. She was already well established on the team. So I think that helped, maybe. I loved coaching her, and it helped me too because I could kind of talk to her and be like, okay, so, what are some of the kind of traditional things that have maybe changed since I was cheering? What's kind of the routine? And I tried not to shake things up too much right away. And, having been a Susquehanna cheerleader myself, obviously tradition was very important to me. So it was cool. And, it was a nice thing because we're 6 years apart in school, so we never actually cheered together except for on one semi-pro team when she was still in high school. So it was cool to get to coach her. It was a fun experience.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So aside from athletics, what else were you involved in on campus?
I was involved in the newspaper. I was sports editor for a few years. Oh my gosh, let's see. Wow, I'm drawing blanks because I was in a lot of stuff. I was in Society for Collegiate Journalists. My freshman year for football season, I didn't cheer. I didn't make the squad. Only 3 freshmen did that season. So I was the sideline reporter for WQSU during football games. When I started college, I had this goal of being a football commentator. But I quickly learned doing radio that maybe I wasn't cut out for that so much. So I switched to writing, which seemed to suit me a little bit better.
That's fantastic.
And I did not go Greek when I was in college, but while I was here coaching, Zeta needed an advisor, and my sister had been a Zeta. So, and we didn't have a lot of alums right here in the area. So one of my cheerleaders was also a Zeta, and she said, "Coach, would you like to be our advisor?" So I became the advisor, and then I actually I'm a special initiate. There are certain circumstances under which they will initiate someone who is not still in college. So I am actually an initiated sister of Zeta now, although I wasn't in college, and I'm still the advisor.
Oh, you're still the advisor?
Yes, I am.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
How was that, if you don't mind my asking?
Oh, I love it. I love the girls. I don't get up here as much as I would like anymore. We do have other advisors. Keely Schock, who works in events management. She's also one of the advisors, so she's here every day, so that's good. And my sister is our financial advisor, and a couple other alums are advisors. So between all of us, we get everything covered, I think, pretty well. But I love it. I love staying involved, and it's one of those things. With the name change and everything, I do feel a little disconnected. From Riverhawks just isn't ringing with me quite yet. Someday I hope to feel better about it. But Zeta, doesn't exactly change, so I still have that tie, and as new sisters join and stuff, that connection is still there. So I love that.
And are there any stories from your time here that you'd like to share?
I don't know if you have enough time for. Oh gosh. I mean, when I was a cheerleader, I was my senior year. We had a double overtime game against Juniata that we won 62-61. We blocked the extra point that they tried to kick in the second overtime period, and that was how we won. Let's see, 2007, the year I was the interim SID, our first football game of the season, we played on a Thursday night. We were like the first football game in all of college athletics that year, every division. It was a night game, and it was supposed to kick off at 7 o'clock. A thunderstorm went through. I think we didn't kick off until at least 8, if not later. So the game was not over until about midnight.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was fun. I mean, oh gosh, I've sat through hurricanes or hurricane-like downpours while I was coaching. I don't seem to remember too many of those while I was actually cheering. There was the last home game of my senior year. It snowed the night before, so they shoveled off the field. There were big piles of snow all around, so that was fun. I mean, there were championships, there were really exciting games. I mean, like I said, old cheerleaders never die, so even when I was coaching, I would just be up there in the stands going crazy, every time we won. Being the sports editor of the Crusader, you got to get in contact with a lot of athletes and stuff. I still tease Coach Bowers, the baseball coach. I still tease him that I have copies of the Crusader from when he was a player. He played football and baseball, and he had some interesting hair choices when he was a student. So I always tease him about that. I'm like, Denny, I have pictures of your crazy, they're like little braids in here. And he chuckles, and Marty Pinter, who is one of the trustees, I always tease him. I'm like, when we were in school together, I was afraid of you because you were always so, he was, all of his pictures are like. And I remember his dad very fondly, who has sadly since passed away. He was like the biggest football fan. He was always up there in the stands, and he had a big flag, and he'd wave it and be like, Crusaders coming at you. And, oh, he was great, Marty's dad. So when I see him, we reminisce about his dad a lot. He was like our biggest fan, and it's just a lot of memories of stuff like that. So to pick out one or even two, like I said, I could be here all day to talk about this, but it was just, the one thing is it was an honor and a privilege to coach then for 8 years. And my final year as coach, which I didn't realize it at the time, homecoming was actually this same date, or no, it was a week later. It was an early homecoming like this. A week before homecoming, it was 2011. That was at Hurricane Lee, or the big tropical storms that flooded everything.
Yes.
A lot of rain. So we didn't get to practice on the football field like we usually do to practice our homecoming routine, our halftime routine. So we were practicing it on the field the first time, like the morning of homecoming, and I had surgery the week before. I had a miscarriage, and I had to have surgery to kind of take care of that.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. My girls actually didn't know it at the time. I didn't tell them. It's kind of like, you're in college. It's things that you're thinking of in the future. I'm like, I didn't want to, really drag them down. But I had to miss 2 days of practice. My first day back was Monday before homecoming, and I couldn't stand. I still had to be sitting, so they wheeled me around in my office chair and okay, you sit over here and watch from here, and then we'll move you over here. And they gave me flowers at the end of practice, and then so their homecoming routine that week was the best one they've ever done in all of my years of coaching. I just bawled at the end of it. And there's a picture that Gordon took at the end of the routine, and they're all hugging me, and it's one of my favorite pictures ever. I still get emotional talking about it, obviously. So that's probably my favorite moment of coaching ever. And it ended up being the last year I coached too, so that's obviously very special. Those girls, and the love that they showed me, and just it's hard to get a good routine together when you've just started the season anyway, and they nailed it, and it was awesome, and they all felt good about it. Like I said, I cried watching it because I was so proud of them. So
that's wonderful.
Yeah, that's my favorite memory.
Well, thank you so much.
No problem.